Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting stuck into some powerful source material, focusing on how to make decisions when things are, well, uncertain, ambiguous. Yeah, the goal here is to give you a kind of blueprint. How do you move from just reacting, maybe feeling confused, to leading with real confidence? We're pulling out those repeatable, principle-based practices. It's like an operating system for crisis navigation.
Exactly. And it really has to start with looking inward, doesn't it? The sources put this challenge right at the beginning. When the pressure really mounts, market shifts, big internal friction, whatever it is, what actually guides your choice? Is it the principles you say you stand for? Or is it, well, just the emotion of the moment setting the direction? Because if you hesitate on that internal decision, the external storm, it just takes over.
That's a critical distinction, that internal anchor versus the external chaos. And I think a lot of leaders, when facing these huge choices, they immediately start hunting for more data. Like more information automatically equals a better decision. But the sources really push back on that, asking, are you just chasing information when what you actually need is direction?
It's such a common mistake.
Mm.
And the material points out, leaders often confuse complicated problems with complex ones. And the cost of getting that wrong for the organization, it can be huge.
Okay, complicated versus complex. Break that down a bit.
Sure. So a complicated problem is like, say, fixing a car engine. It might be difficult, need expertise, but there's a known process. Manuals exist, right? But a complex problem, that's more like trying to understand shifting market trends or changing your company culture. It involves living systems, cause and effect. You often only see it clearly looking back.
Right, so applying that fixed mechanical logic, machine logic, to a living complex system, it's just not going to work. But when you're actually in the thick of it, how do you practically tell the difference?
Well, you need filters. You need to intentionally slow down the decision process, not necessarily the action itself. The source offers this really central tool, the Discernment Quadrant, or the compass of wisdom. The idea is that any really significant choice needs to pass through 4 specific filters before you act.
Okay, 4 filters. What are they?
So first up is truth. Is this decision based on reality? Is the information accurate? Basic grounding. Second is goodness. Does this actually align with our core values, the ones we say we uphold as an organization? Third is timeliness, a crucial one. Is now the right moment? Or are we rushing or maybe waiting too long?
And that 4th filter,
As it goes deeper.
right into the sort of ethical or moral foundation. The source calls it godliness, or alignment with God's will.
Precisely. And look, regardless of your personal belief system, this filter really pushes you. It demands that the decision is rooted in the highest ethical standard you aspire to. Humility, integrity,
Yeah.
thinking beyond just profit or immediate gain.
It forces you to ask, does this choice actually reflect what we claim to stand for at the deepest level?
Exactly. It adds that dimension.
It's a strong framework. But thinking practically, which of those 4 do leaders tend to gloss over when speed feels essential? My gut says timeliness often gets sacrificed. We move too fast, maybe too slow, driven by anxiety.
Timeliness is definitely a casualty, yes. But the material actually suggests that, goodness, that alignment with core values is often the first thing to go in a crisis.
Ah, interesting.
Which leads us straight into the whole inner game of leadership. Your principles, they should define how you respond under pressure. They shouldn't bend because of pressure.
Okay, but that raises a really tricky point, doesn't it? What's the real difference between adapting your strategy, which you absolutely have to do, and actually compromising your core values?
That's the razor's edge. Strategy needs flexibility, the world changes. But the sources are pretty clear. Values need to be those fixed points, those anchors.
Yeah, the danger.
The danger is chasing short-term wins by sacrificing principles. You might hit a quarterly target, sure, but you erode the long-term trust and integrity that actually sustains the organization. Managing that starts inside.
Yeah, and I like how the source material is a bit skeptical about just following your gut. It poses that question. What if that gut feeling isn't real discernment at all? What if it's just impulse wearing a disguise?
Well, exactly. Intuition can be valuable, no doubt, but it needs filtering too. Impulse often springs from deeper things, right? Fear, maybe impatience, even ego sometimes, and it can feel like insight. True discernment, though, needs a pause. It needs a process to step back from that immediate emotional reaction.
So it's about using emotions as signals, not steering wheels.
Precisely. Treat every emotional reaction like data. It tells you something important is going on, but it shouldn't be silently driving the decision.
Okay, so how do we make that discipline practical? How do we actually do that in the moment?
The source gives us a really concrete technique, the pause and pray habit. Think of it as a structured way to apply the brakes when things feel emotionally charged.
Pause and pray. 3 steps.
Yep, simple but powerful. First, you literally name the emotion, get specific. Is it fear, anxiety, frustration? Put a label on it. Second, you intentionally seek perspective and peace. That might be through quiet reflection, prayer, whatever centers you. And third, only then do you reassess the decision after you've created that bit of space and calm. It forces a gap between the stimulus and your response. That's where principles are protected.
That internal discipline that
Yeah.
feels like the foundation needed to then face the external stuff, the complexity.
Absolutely, because then you can shift focus. And the source is really insistent here. Stop seeing your organization like a machine you can just tinker with.
See it as a living system instead.
Exactly. Machine thinking makes you believe you can just swap out a part or implement a quick fix for instant results. But a living system, it needs nurturing, awareness of hidden connections, systemic thinking.
Right, systems thinking. Looking beyond the immediate symptom. If the same problem keeps popping up again and again.
It means there's an underlying structure, an unseen connection creating that loop. You've got to find what the source calls the small hinge, that decision today that can swing a really big door tomorrow. Could be in your supply chain, team structure, anywhere.
And tackling those systemic issues often involves risk, doesn't it?
Inevitably. And here, the material draws another crucial distinction between faith-filled risk, which is calculated, principled, stepping into uncertainty, and just foolish ambition.
Coolish ambition being.
Reckless haste, often driven by ego, impatience, ignoring the potential downsides because you're so focused on the prize.
But even when you understand the risk, the temptation is often to just wait. Wait for more certainty, more data. Paralysis sets in.
That's a huge trap. The source warns strongly against waiting for perfect information. In complex situations, perfect clarity is almost never available before you act. Courage is needed precisely because you don't have all the answers.
So how do you move forward then without all the answers, without getting paralyzed?
You need a dynamic approach. The source offers this tool, the iterative decision loop. This isn't about having a perfect plan from the start. It's a system for moving and learning simultaneously.
Iterative decision loop. Okay, how does that work in practice? Let's say a competitor makes a sudden move.
Right. You don't have all the info, but you need to respond. The loop says, assess what you do know quickly. Then act. Make a small, testable move, not a giant commitment. Then immediately evaluate the feedback from that action in the real world, what happened. Then adjust your approach based on what you just learned. And then
Repeat the cycle. Assess, act, evaluate, adjust.
exactly. You're constantly refining. You guarantee forward movement, learning as you go, but you avoid locking yourself into a big, potentially wrong plan early on.
Okay, so we've got the internal compass, those anchoring principles, and this iterative loop for action in messy situations. But doing this consistently, that takes discipline. How do you sustain it day to day? Learners need structure, right?
They do. And sustaining this kind of wise practice requires systems that prevent you from just getting overwhelmed, frankly. Cognitive overload is real. The source gives us the actionable to-do list framework.
Which is more than just a list, I gather.
Much more. It starts with the clarity question. For absolutely every item you jot down, whether it's on a list or in your head, you have to ask, what does this mean to me and what am I actually committed to do about it?
So it forces you past vague intentions like improve team morale.
Precisely. It turns that into something concrete, like schedule one-on-one chats with direct reports by end of week. It forces an action commitment.
Okay, clarity question first. Then what?
Then you apply the priority pyramid. And this is key. Don't prioritize just by urgency. Urgency is often dictated by external noise or other people's agendas. Instead, rank your active project based on their true alignment with your core mission. Level 1, mission critical. Level 2, strategic importance. Level 3, supportive tasks. This makes sure your best energy goes to what actually matters long term.
Right, aligning action with purpose. But even with clarity and priority, you need to step back and learn from it all, don't you?
Absolutely. That's where the weekly wisdom review comes in. This isn't just another status meeting. It's dedicated time, maybe just 30 minutes, to consciously review your open projects against your goals. And critically, the source emphasizes journaling during this review. What worked? What didn't? What did you learn about your own decision patterns this week? That reflection is where raw experience starts to become actual wisdom.
Converting experience into wisdom. I like that. Is there anything more advanced for really managing the mental load?
Yes, for really tackling that feeling of mental clutter, there's a great self-check called the mental bandwidth audit.
Mental bandwidth audit. Okay, tell me about that. Cognitive fatigue is definitely a real thing for leaders.
It is. So the audit is simple. List the top 10 thoughts, issues, or worries that you find yourself coming back to over and over again during the day. The things just looping in your head, eating up mental RAM. And for every single one of those 10 items, you must immediately define the very next physical action required to move it forward, even slightly. Then you capture that action on your trusted task list.
Ah, so you get it out of your head and onto paper with a defined next step.
Exactly. It moves the problem out of your limited mental workspace and onto a system you trust. That frees up vital bandwidth for the deep strategic thinking that leadership actually requires.
That's incredibly practical. Okay, so just to recap, we've covered a lot. Using that four-part compass for alignment, identifying and really protecting your core principles under fire, and using that iterative loop to keep moving forward even when things are murky.
Yeah, and if you tie all those threads together, the underlying message from the sources is pretty profound, I think. It suggests that wisdom isn't just about accumulating knowledge, what you know. It's fundamentally about who you are becoming as a leader through your choices, your consistent decision-making habits, your model that ultimately shapes the culture around you, your team, your organization. That's the real legacy, much more than any single outcome.
Who you're becoming, that's powerful. So let's leave our listeners with a final thought to reflect on this week, building on everything we've discussed. What would it genuinely look like for you in your context to lead with quiet clarity instead of that often frantic, anxious momentum we see so much? What would need to change?